Ladies and gentlemen, we've known that the legacy media is constantly in a state of gaslighting and are complete and total shills that have been paid off by most of the major corporations out there, either through advertising or through absolute access through getting to see early releases, getting first access to games or movies or television shows or any of this kind of nonsense. This is something we've known for a very long time. It's why a lot of you out there now come to places like YouTube or Rumble or any of your other favorite social media platforms out there to come for honest opinions that you can find. As RMB out there says, Robert Meyer Burnett, that authenticity is the currency of the realm at this point, boys and girls. That's why we see so many legacy media corporations either shutting down or laying off massive amounts of people and drastically cutting back on what they're producing. Because guess what? Nobody trusts them anymore. We know that people have been in the tank for a very long time for a lot of these major corporations out there. We know that you could not be trusted. It's why nobody trusts the critic scores anymore, whether it be Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, or anything else. We just don't trust their opinions because they have shown to be time and time again not line up with what the audiences believe, not what the fans believe, and at the end of the day what the paying customers believe. Well, boys and girls, another fine example of that has just come out, because if you had not heard or not, a little Disney Plus series premiered last week, which I can't believe it was just like last week. It feels like it's been so much longer than that. Premiered last week over on Disney Plus, and of course they're out there trying to tout the numbers. They're trying to promote it out there because we know that the Walt Disney Company is in a very hard financial space right now, with a lot of investors looking very closely at everything they're producing and what they're doing to see what the future of the Walt Disney Company under Bob Iger's current leadership actually ends up holding. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the gaslighting is going off the nines, and the checks must have cleared, because this headline over at the Hollywood Reporter is the biggest line of absolute barely true nonsense I have ever seen, and it's absolute gaslighting, boys and girls, because the Acolyte gives Disney Plus its best series opening of 2024. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you'd think 6 months in that would actually be something to really tout about, but considering the limited amount of things that Disney has actually had in their original series of Gambit out there, and considering how abysmally bad their numbers currently are, this, ladies and gentlemen, is a prime example of nothing more than the shill access media, the legacy media out there doing what it does best, shilling for the agenda, pushing a bunch of nonsense gaslighting for a bigger corporation out there that at the end of the day pays their bills. So, ladies and gentlemen, how can I prove to you that this is absolute nonsense, that this is absolutely abysmally bad, and that no matter what kind of gaslighting nonsense that the Walt Disney Company tries to spout out there, the Acolyte is a disastrous dumpster fire with their first 2 episodes premiering, and I promise you, boys and girls, it is only going to get worse with episode 3 and week 2. So we're going to check out this article from the Hollywood Reporter, get into the numbers that Disney is currently out there to touting as such a big success, and give you some prime historical examples of why this show is an abysmal failure, and we can prove it. But before we do, whether you're watching on the live stream currently or whether or not you're watching this on the replay, checking out one of the videos out there, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and or follow. If you have not already, smash that like button and leave us a comment down below and let us know what you think about all of this. And if you are watching on the live stream, you'll know that I read all of your videos out live, and you get to hear my actual response live. So come check us out on the live streams Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. for our morning prep, boys and girls. So here we go. The Acolyte gives Disney Plus its best series opening of 2024. The Star Wars shows fall short of Ahsoka's opening numbers from last year. Oh, yes, they do. And remember how the Walt Disney Company touted Ahsoka as such a great success? They just had it plastered all over every piece of social media about how wonderful our numbers are. Well, boys and girls, at the end of the day, you have to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, because we don't know anything about how Disney actually measures its metrics outside what they tell us, and because we don't get weekly scorings of all of their shows out there, we don't really have any numbers to compare this to. Oh, but we do have numbers for Ahsoka on other platforms that we can compare and contrast to. So we're going to get into that. But let's listen to Disney's fluff first. A substantial number of Disney Plus users followed the Acolyte over its first few days on the streamer. I like how they say a substantial number. They don't say a whole lot. They don't say a majority. They don't say a vast amount. A substantial number. Doesn't sound too positive, does it? Disney Plus says the Star Wars series recorded the biggest opening for a show on the streamer so far this year. with the premiere episode recording 11.1 million views, i.e. the equivalent of that many completing the show of the 42-minute episode worldwide over 5 days. That equates to about 46.2 million. We don't care how they calculate their time. The Acolyte fell somewhat shy of the most recent Star Wars series for our Disney Plus, Ahsoka, which drew 14 million views over its first 5 days in August 2023, according to Disney. It's on par with the debut of Percy Jackson and the Olympians in December, which had 13.3 million views over 6 days, according to Disney, which works out to be about the same daily average as that of the Acolyte over 5 days. Disney Plus had earlier noted the Acolyte's opening day gathered 4.8 million views. Okay. All right, so that's the numbers that Disney compares us to. But because we don't have like any kind of weekly numbers, because they're not tracking any other series on any of the other shows, those numbers really don't tell us a lot. Now, if somebody who doesn't really know about this kind of stuff, or maybe somebody out there like you or anybody else who has to come, who doesn't have the time to go out there and look for this kind of information, actually compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, that's what we're here for, boys and girls, because I will give you the evidence as to show while these numbers might sound large and substantial on their front-facing value, why they are absolutely nothing more than complete and total nonsense BS gaslighting, and why the Acolyte is paled and destined for the exact same dumpster fire that Ahsoka went into. Because, boys and girls, Ahsoka's numbers were touted. As we said right here, their premiere was 14 million viewers. Notice they didn't report on how well the numbers did for any episodes after that. But according to Forbes, Ahsoka's viewing numbers are well below The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Mandalorian, the series that launched Disney Plus and Disney Star Wars on their streaming service. There was actually something that gave hope to a lot of Star Wars fans. It actually brought a lot of us back in after the absolute abomination that was the Disney sequel trilogy. Ahsoka's numbers are well below that. The Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which was absolutely lauded, was absolutely despised by fans almost universally, and even the critics couldn't shill hard enough for that one to keep it alive. The numbers are below that because Ahsoka was below those. The Acolyte is below Ahsoka, which means the Acolyte is one of the worst premieres and one of the worst launches on the Disney Plus streaming services for a Star Wars show. And here's the real question. By studying our history, because at the end of the day, boys and girls, if you do not understand your history, if you do not study it, you are destined to repeat it, because history doesn't just repeat itself, it also rhymes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've already now established that Acolyte is doing worse than Ahsoka, which Ahsoka did worse than Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi in their latest stuff. So you know the numbers are bad, and it's a continued downward trend, which once again, the Acolyte now continues that because it is premiering worse than Ahsoka. So based on that information, comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, what happened to Ahsoka's numbers? Ahsoka's viewership falls off Nielsen's overall top 10 chart second week, nearly identical to Andor. That was chasing the audience, according to the people behind Andor. So this is what it tells us. While the numbers are in, according to third-party analysis, Ahsoka does not seem to be one of Disney's higher-viewed Star Wars projects, according to its premiere viewership numbers. Samba, the firm that estimates those ratings because Disney won't give out actual numbers, says Ahsoka's premiere viewership is about even with Andor, but well below The Mandalorian and the Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ahsoka got 1.2 million households to watch in the first 5 days, even with Andor, which featured no major Star Wars characters, only a co-star of Rogue One. Meanwhile, the live-action accusation of Ahsoka was 11 years of animated series with Dave Filoni, so you might have expected it to be higher. So this, once again, now you have The Acolyte, a show with completely new characters, with nobody knows whatsoever. And these numbers are already below it. So that's how bad the Samba numbers were. And once again, the Nielsen numbers show us the exact same thing. In its second week, it dropped off. In the first week of release, the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka racked up 829 million minutes, which was good for 5th on Nielsen's top 10 overall chart. Not number 1, not number 2, like what it premiered on Samba. No, 5th for its overall weekend. But by the second week, poof, gone. no longer on the charts. So, ladies and gentlemen, based on this information, based on what we know right now, our historical trends are trends for a reason. They normally go the exact same way. So you tell me, after seeing the evidence I have laid out before you, are the Acolytes numbers that Disney is out there trying to push as a success nothing more than gaslighting, like we've shown it was for Ahsoka when it premiered, in the same way they tried touting those numbers out at the exact same time? Or are we wrong? Is this a success? Are these numbers something premiered? Yes. Is it the most successful premiere all year? But considering the current state of Disney Plus, is that saying anything good? No. The Acolyte is an abysmal failure. It is a show that rips off and copies a lot of other things that have done it much better than them before. It kills off one of the most interesting characters that actually drew a lot of people in and thought might actually make the series good, Carrie-Anne Moss, within the first 5 minutes of the show. Spoiler alert. No matter how much gaslighting the Walt Disney Company, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, and Leslie Headland try to put out there, at the end of the day, the show Acolyte is a failure. It is trash. It is boring. The critics can't hide their disdain for it, and it is the worst rated Star Wars product of all time, according to the fans. Let Disney gaslight. I'm glad the checks cleared over at the Hollywood Reporter, Rick Porter. But at the end of the day, the fans and the customers are to decide whether or not something is a success or is a failure. And no matter how much gaslighting you try to do over there at your legacy media institution, authenticity is the currency of the realm. And no one believes anyone in legacy media is authentic, and the gaslighting you just put out for what will probably end up being one of the most abysmal, if not the worst, Star Wars product that Disney has ever produced, well, now you know why. People don't trust you anymore, and you've done it to yourselves. You get what you deserve. Disney Star Wars is dead. Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, and now Leslie Headland are responsible for it. And guess what, boys and girls? Color us shocked there. The shills just keep on shilling.